Hi there, I'm Alessandra Latour, a leadership expert with over 15 years of experience leading teams and developing leadership programs for over 400 leaders. I've had the privilege of designing learning programs for companies ranging from 15 to 5,000 team members, and I've earned a Doctor of Education degree to make sure that all of the programs I develop maximize learning and action. Through the Latour Leadership Academy, I empower emerging and existing leaders to embrace their authentic leadership style, create team synergy, and foster a positive work culture through curated and personalized learning experiences. In this podcast, we'll talk about how leadership can be found in everyday activities and provide practical tips for those who are new to managing or leading a new team. If you're a leader or hoping to be one, by title or not, I'd love to connect, get to know you better, and find out how I can help. You can grab a free resource on my website, latourleadershipacademy.com, and sign up for my weekly email newsletter where we talk about leadership skills, network, and share action-based ways to enhance team collaboration and positive productivity.
This mini-sode is about building trust and relationships, because teams with high trust are 50% more productive. Let's get started. The first question that came in was, how can I build trust quickly with my new team? This is a great question because it's going to be important to spend time getting to know each of your team members personally and professionally, especially if you're walking into a new group. If you're an outsider, sometimes it can take a little bit more time. If that team has been together for a long period of time and you're the new one, that means that they're trying to figure you out just as you trying to figure them out, right? So the first thing you should do is be transparent about your goals and expectations. And I can't remember exactly when it was, but many moons ago when I was first a manager, I was given a book called, Who Took My Cheese or something like that. It's a leadership book. And basically the premise of the book is that when you're a new leader in a new team, in a new environment, your job for the first 30, 60, maybe even 90 days is to observe. This doesn't mean you can't be thinking behind the scenes, problem solving, troubleshooting kind of things, how to make things better, continuous improvement. It just means that you first need to get to know your team, and you need to get to know what they do, and you need to get to know the organization if it's new to you. And so you can have goals and expectations, but you should be careful how much you disclose or how much you share first thing. Instead, get to know them and do some observation first. So that's one way to build trust with your new team, is to make sure that you're not suddenly coming in and wanting to change everything on day 1 or day 2 or day 10, right? They want to know that you're going to work with them. And so one of my recommendations to all leaders is to set up one-on-one conversations with your team members at a minimum of monthly. But if they're your direct reports, I would suggest weekly. And I also encourage leaders to have their teams do that among the team as well. So if you have 10 team members, those team members should be meeting one-on-one with each other as well at a minimum of monthly. And that conversation doesn't have to be a professional conversation. It can be related to personal things so they get to know each other better. This is especially important if you're working in a remote environment, because you don't have that normal water cooler talk or before the meeting starts talk or after the meeting ends talk or lunchtime. So you need to create those opportunities for interaction so that you can build trust among your team. And also another way to build trust in your new team is to make sure that whatever you promise, you follow through on, and whatever you say you're going to do, you're consistent. So if you are going to create an agenda for your team meetings weekly, then you should create an agenda every single week, or ask somebody if you have to delegate it to do that for you. But if you make a promise, make sure you fulfill that. And if you can't fulfill that promise, maybe it shouldn't have been a promise to begin with. And also, clarify why. Why couldn't I have done this when I promised this to you? But that's a great question. Trust is the foundation for everything else that happens within the team. Healthy conflict, accountability, decision-making, celebrating even team success is all based on trust. So it's a great foundation to have with your team. All right, the next question is about, how do I balance being approachable and maintaining authority? Another great question. I've dealt with this myself. When I first was a manager, I thought that meant I had to be authoritative and not necessarily assertive, but maybe more aggressive, especially being a woman, to manage my team. And I learned that being approachable, maintaining authority, and being assertive were better than the harder approach. So while you need to set clear boundaries, you still need to be open and accessible. So that might mean that you say, you're going to get your work done, and I'm going to trust that you're going to get your work done. You're going to have autonomy. But I also, when I need to follow up with you and check on things, I expect that the work is done, right? You're setting expectations there and maintaining clear boundaries, and also saying, I'm available for support if you need it, but I expect that you're going to get the work done. So ask me, ask your coworkers, ask whoever you have to for help, but know that, you're expected to get your things done. The other thing is to communicate openly and empathetically while also being decisive. So it's a little bit tricky, right? You have to be somewhat transparent and communicate openly with your team. Sometimes you can't be as transparent as you'd like, just based on the nature of the company or the work or your position. You want to be empathetic to them. So you want to understand where they're coming from and how whatever you are doing or saying is causing, anything going on with them. And then being decisive. So you can communicate with your team and you can be empathetic, but eventually somebody's got to make a decision. You as the leader might have more information than some of your team members. So you might have to say, okay, we've had a great discussion. I'm going to go back and do X because I know ABC is happening behind the scenes that you may not be aware of, or something like that. So being approachable is you're communicating openly and empathetically, but you're also still being decisive when you have to. And then to maintain that authority and be approachable, lead by example and demonstrate what you expect from your team, right? If you expect them to be approachable, but also have the experience and expertise to show their authority in a particular area, show them that you value that authority, right? So if somebody's an expert in a particular area on your team, use them for projects that require that. Have them give the presentations that are in their area of expertise. Have them join you in meetings where somebody with their expertise is needed. Lead by example, and you maintain authority over them while also asking them to exert their authority. And that goes back to trust too. If you trust your team being experts in what you've hired them to do, then you should very easily be able to lead by example in that way. All right, the final question in this building trust and relationships section here was, how do I set clear expectations without micromanaging? So this is interesting. I put a post recently on LinkedIn about micromanaging and whether there's any use to that in leadership. And there were some varied responses. Some, please no, never micromanage. And others, well, if you're a brand new person, you as a leader might need to, or your team member is a brand new person, you as a leader might need to say, okay, I'm going to work with you. I'm going to work side by side with you. I'm going to check in more often. And that might feel a little micromanagey, but it is going to help that person onboard better or train better or learn a new skill. Or you're going to build your relationship with them because you're supporting them. So micromanaging might have a positive connotation in those kind of instances. Anyway, so if you're trying to avoid micromanaging with your, regular team, it's not somebody brand new, you'll want to make sure that you clearly define roles, responsibilities, and deadlines. If you're expecting to check in weekly with somebody, there is no need for you to check in biweekly, or twice a week, I should say, with that person, right? If you give them a deadline and they don't reach it, then you might need to resort to a little bit more frequent check-in on the next project. Right? And it might feel more micromanaging, but there's a purpose behind that. You'll also want to make sure that you trust your team members to manage their tasks and you offer them support as needed. So if you're having a one-on-one with your team member, you might check in on their projects. You might ask, okay, this project sounds like it's going well. Is there anything that you need from me on my end to help you through that project or with that next task or to meet that deadline, right? So trusting them to do their work, but also offering support as needed. And I think the most important thing to set clear expectations without micromanaging is to provide regular check-ins and feedback, right? If you are not meeting with them at all until the end of the project and they're like, well, but I didn't have your support and I couldn't do X, Y, Z and the project's not done, that's not just their fault, right? That's also your fault for not checking in. When you do check in, you'll want to focus on outcomes rather than processes because nobody's going to do it the way you would do it. And unless they absolutely have to do it the way you do it for whatever reason, you should focus on the outcome and not on what their process was. So let them have the opportunity to be creative in the way that they are and do the work that they want to do as they see as they want to do it rather, and focus on the outcome rather than the process. That's going to help them feel like you're looking at the end result. You're not looking at everything in the middle that they did. And that feels less micromanaging than if you were to focus on their process and not the outcome. Now, if you notice there was a hiccup somewhere, sure, go back to the process. But from the get-go, at least look at the outcome. And again, make sure you're setting that regular feedback cadence so that they know when they have time with you. And what's great about that also, setting that cadence of feedback, is that the team member will be more likely to bring something to you at those regular meetings than, let's say there's somebody who doesn't like to ask for help. If you're giving them an opportunity to ask for help within that meeting, you are giving them that opportunity, and they should be able to take that opportunity versus if they have to come to you on their own, perhaps. They might be less likely to do that, especially if it's a new person or a new team. You'll have a better opportunity of getting them to speak up for what they need if you have regular check-ins.
Thanks for joining me for this mini-sode. If we're not already connected on LinkedIn, you can find me there, sharing practical tips and insights on all things leadership. And don't forget to grab the free resource on my website, latourleadershipacademy.com, and get more great tips directly in your inbox. Have a great rest of your day, and see you back here soon.